Hi. I love it. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about goodness and why we feel like we need to be good all the time. Why we feel like, and this can translate in several different ways. Okay, so you might not be the kind of person that feels yourself asking if you're good or if you're good enough. Although I kind of feel like we all have that question that we ask, right? The am I good enough? Am I doing good? Am I doing life good? Right? And then we can ask ourselves, am I living my purpose? Am I doing it right? Am I being a good person? Am I being a good spiritual person? Am I being a good family member? Am I being a good friend? Am I being a good colleague? Am I being a good all of these things? And then even greater than that, right? Like a lot of us ask ourselves often, like if we're living our purpose, right? If we're doing life right, and we really mean that from like a deep place, like we mean it from like am I living spiritually correct? Am I living emotionally correct? Am I living my potential? Am I doing everything that I came here to do? Am I making a big enough impact on the planet? Am I right, am I doing my own life right? Am I being who I should be? Am I doing what I should be doing? And all of these questions that kind of can haunt us in the middle of the night a lot of the time, right? When we're undistracted and when we have a moment to rest or we have a moment to slow down, we can become very bombarded with these questions of am I good enough? And even when, so the am I good enough and am I good, right? Like that feeling of if I am bad in whatever way that we have been indoctrinated that we can be bad. If I am bad, the deep fear that we all have of like feeling like we need to reject ourselves, feeling like we need to abandon ourselves, feeling like we need to fix ourselves when we aren't living up to what we have been taught is good. When we aren't living up to what we have been conditioned to believe is good. Or what we've adopted as we've grown up, because that's the thing too. It's like not all of it is totally subconscious programming. Some of it is completely conscious. We are aware that this is what I believe it is to be a good person. This is what I believe it is to be right. Or, okay, we have this deep-seated understanding or belief system that if I were doing it right, if I was good, if I was living up to expectation, I would be having a specific experience, right? Like I would feel a certain way. I would be getting certain results in my life. Whether that be kind of arbitrary, like I would feel like a success. I would feel like I was accomplishing what I should be accomplishing. I would feel purposeful. I would feel healthy. I would feel like I was in community and I had people who loved me. I would feel good. I would feel peace. I would feel enlightenment. Or, like I say, we might have a more specific idea of what it should look like if we were good and if I was doing good and if I was really living to what I should be living. I would be making a certain amount of money. I would have this kind of partnership. I would be experiencing this in my body. And we can start to get to a place where we really don't, where we feel like we're constantly failing and we're not doing good enough. Either for like these, with this arbitrary kind of just like vague sense of I just don't feel like I'm doing good. I feel like I'm failing. I'm feeling like I'm not good, like I'm not a good person. And we're like looking to the outside world to say like, am I good? Am I doing good? Am I being good? And we're not getting the feedback that we want. Or we have these very specific expectations of if I were doing good, if I was good, if I were truly doing what I should be doing, I would be experiencing these things. And because I'm not experiencing these things, I don't have the body that I want. I don't have the health that I want. I don't have the relationships that I want. I don't have the career that I want. I'm not making the money that I want. I'm not having the spiritual experiences that I want to be having. I don't have the emotional experience of life that I want to be having. I don't feel how I want to feel. we can get into that state of like, well, this is clear evidence that I'm not good, that I'm not doing it right, that I'm missing something. And then we're constantly on this search, this, what am I supposed to be doing? What am I missing? Looking for the rule book, essentially. And a lot of us, right, we sort of have to first understand that this desire to be good, this desire to be doing it right, yeah, because that's the other big thing that we all kind of have, or a lot of us have, is the am I good, or the question of am I doing this right? Am I doing life right? Am I doing what I should be doing? Am I living up to what I should be living up to? Yes? And we can be in these loops where we're constantly asking ourselves these questions. Am I doing it right? Am I good? Am I doing it right? Am I good? Am I living my purpose? Am I doing what I should be doing? Is this right? Is this not right? And we don't ever stop and pause and really ask ourselves, number one, like, what do we mean by good? And what do we mean by right? And we don't ever ask ourselves, where did our ideas of good and right come from? Where did we learn what it was to be good and what it was to be right? And is that in alignment with reality? Is that in alignment with our experience? And then we never ask ourselves what am I expecting I should be feeling? What am I expecting I should be experiencing? What are my expectations here? And again, where did those come from? And is that reasonable within the reality that we actually live in? So this first thing that I really want to start with is that our culture teaches us every single one of us, no matter what kind of culture you're raised in, teaches us a set of rules and principles for how to get along in society, how to get along in a religion, how to get along in the culture you were raised in, the community that you're surrounded by. And we're all handed a rule book for if you want to survive in this culture, here are the things you have to do and that you have to be, and here are the things you can't do and the things you can't be. Okay? And this is fundamental for us to understand, that we are all handed a rule book, and that's going to be an amalgamation of things, depending on where you were raised and where you were born and what kind of culture you were brought up in, like what country you were born in, the specific community you were born into, maybe the religion you were born into, the political, socioeconomic status you were born into. All of these things are going to factor in, right? The culture, did I mention that already? Are going to factor into the rule book that you were specifically handed, yeah? That in your childhood, from 0 to 7 and then going forward, that really shaped right now what your subconscious and semi-conscious versions of good, definitions of good are. All right? We were all handed a rule book because, again, that's kind of the job of our caregivers. That's the job of the people who raise us, is to give us some foundations for how to navigate this very complex life where all of these things are happening all at once and lots of things that we don't understand and lots of things that we do understand. We need to have some sort of foundation for how we're going to make decisions. We need to have some sort of conditioning, really, that helps us filter out some bits of information that are just too much information, right? Because if we were to really actually be taking in and processing all of the information that we're being confronted with in a moment-by-moment basis, we would all just be paralyzed because it's so much information. So much is happening out all the time. Like when all of the kind of astrologers and energy readers of the time are saying, this is a really intense time on the planet. It's like, it's always a really intense time on the planet because Earth is sensory overload. Like truly, it is absolutely the definition. Earth is the definition of sensory overload. Being a human being on this planet with our limited capacity to process information on a planet where literally at every moment, everything you're doing, you are surrounded by information, things happening that, again, might have absolutely nothing to do with your experience. You don't need to know that information. Your brain and your body filter it out completely because it doesn't matter. But at the same time, right, there's going to be so much information on this planet, so many things happening at all times, that if we were to be taking it in all the time and trying to consider all of it and trying to factor it all into every decision that we make, we would never be able to make a decision. We would never be able to do anything. So part of the thing is, you know, I know a lot of us say, like, I want to get rid completely of my conditioning. And I would say, like, you're not going to get rid completely of your conditioning. Even relearning, like, how to feel and how to process your emotions and how to be with yourself, that's a condition. That's a conditioning. You're conditioning yourself to respond to reality differently, right? You're conditioning a pattern in there into your being that is a helpful pattern, that is, and we're going to get into this in a second, that can be a very useful pattern, but it's still conditioning, right? Like, we are not ever going to be blank slates. We're never going to be just pure consciousness observing reality, because we're a part of it. And because we have a vested interest in our own lives. Okay? We're never going to be a neutral observer of life, because we have motivation to keep ourselves alive, to have pleasure, to accomplish things. We're not a neutral consciousness. We have skin in the game, literally. Like, right? We literally have skin in the game. And so to expect that we're ever going to not have a filter, that we're going to not have a way that we're perceiving reality, that we're not going to have things over top of real reality, that we're not going to have vested interest that skews our perception, to expect that that's ever going to happen is an unrealistic expectation, because you exist and you want to feel good, and that is a complex, that requires a complex set of actions and understandings and interactions with the universe around you that is always going to be skewing you. And that's okay, right? We're never going to be pure consciousness. And maybe we can reach those states in meditation, and maybe we can have moments of seeing pure consciousness, and I'm not saying that that doesn't exist, but I'm saying we're not going to live our lives like that. That would be impractical. We could not live our lives like that. If we were pure consciousness, unperturbed, unmotivated, we would die. We wouldn't keep the body alive, because it takes motivation, it takes a desire, it takes a vested interest in a specific part of life for that to happen. Okay? So side tangent there. But this leads me into the blueprint we were all handed, the rule book we were all handed. Where did that come from? Why was that rule book what it was? Why did we learn what goodness was and what badness was the way that we did? Okay, so the roots of that, the roots of good and bad, the roots of good and evil, the roots of this is how we should be and this is how we shouldn't be, come from a humanity trying their best to figure out the rules. Well, animals don't have pure consciousness, right? So someone just says pure consciousness like animals do. Animals don't have pure consciousness. They are also invested in their own life. They don't have pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is the universal consciousness of I am like a pure observer of everything that happens. I have literally no desire for anything to happen or not happen. I don't have any skin in the game. I have no filter. Like, I don't have a bias that's going to make me reject some information and accept some other information and pretend some information is real that isn't, and all these things, because I don't have a vested interest in anything being anything. Animals don't have pure consciousness. No, animals have a different consciousness than we do. They don't tell stories, and they have, technically, as far as we can tell, a slightly lower consciousness, but that's not pure consciousness. Yes? Okay. anything that's alive doesn't have pure consciousness. You just put it that way. Because anything that's alive is biologically designed to keep itself alive and therefore to prioritize itself on some level, Like even people who are totally altruistic seeming, it's because that's a part of how they view themselves, right? To be altruistic and to be self-sacrificing and to be whatever, that's still coming from a view of self, that this is what is right and this is what is good and this is part of me being good and being right, is to be self-sacrificing and altruistic. There's still like I'm doing this from an internal sense of feeling like this is the right thing to do, or an external sense of this is what is the right thing to do. Because, again, and then this is why we have these rules and we have these laws, is again, it all comes from human beings having that vested interest in procuring pleasure and avoiding pain and trying to figure out the rule book that we need to follow in order to have that. That is where good and bad comes from. That is where right and wrong all come from. If you go back far enough to where did all these rules come from, it came from humans saying, when I do this thing and when I do that thing and when we behave in this way and when we do this and when we have this and we follow these rules, we get the things we want. We get the things we want. That's where the rules started. This is how we get what we want. That is where good and bad came from. That is where all good and bad came from. At the very, very beginning. It seemed like when I did this, I got punished, or I didn't get the reward that I wanted, or there was this or that thing, right? And then understanding that humans very often attach meaning to things that don't have meaning. So there were definitely superstitious tribes that believed that when we do these things, we are punished by nature by having a drought. So don't do those things. When we do these kinds of sacrifices to nature, nature blesses us with a good harvest, so do these things. And then this becomes knit into the culture of this is what it is to be good. This is what it is to be bad. Because when you're like this, you're rewarded with the things you need. When you are like this, you are punished with not getting the things you need. And whether or not that was in alignment with true and real reality is up for debate in a lot of ways. But these were the stories we were weaving. These were the patterns we were seeing. These were the things that we were building as this is what is good and this is what is bad. Okay? And then further on down the line, when we started to develop these power structures that we currently live in, right, where we have power imbalance and we have unequal distribution of resources and we have these very complex societal systems, a lot of what our good and bad is, a lot of what we have been indoctrinated to believe this is good and this is bad, comes from the power structure manipulating us, the human beings, their culture, into believing that acting in certain ways and living in certain ways and doing certain things is how to get rewarded. Okay, so a lot, in the beginning again, good and bad, right and wrong, was far more in alignment with how reality actually is. In the sense that it came from, when I do this, I seem to get this result. If right now, as human beings, we were really truly asking ourselves, what is good and what is bad? What is right and what is wrong? And we had released all of our indoctrination of what we were taught was good and bad and right and wrong and all of these things, we wouldn't end up with a lawlessness. Okay? We wouldn't end up with no rules and you can just do whatever you want and everything is great and everything is fine. We would end up with you can absolutely do whatever you want, because you can, even now, do whatever you want. But we would still have actions to our consequences for all of our actions. Okay? In real reality, and this is why, again, like when people ask me, like, how do I determine what real reality is? How do I determine what my real feelings are telling me versus fake feeling, like consensus reality feelings? How do I figure out what's real reality and what's consensus reality? Okay, this is not an easy question to answer, and it is not something you're gonna just figure out how to do and then you're gonna. It's going to be a process of untangling and slowly learning to feel the difference between the actual results you get from your actions, how those play into our social conditioning and how that plays into our social dynamics, and figuring out slowly, piece by piece, how to live the closest you can, okay, the closest you can to what is truly genuine for you and what is truly genuine in real reality within the social context that we all live in. Okay, so again, I don't know that we can ever fully live a fully, completely aligned with reality life within culture and within society, because we are in some ways dependent upon the culture around us, that we are dependent upon others, and we're not all going for this. We're not all going for real reality. We are all living under our conditioned rules, and sometimes we kind of have to play the game a little bit in order to get what we need and what we want, but we're going to talk about that in a second. So again, if humans had stayed just being like, okay, let's be in alignment with reality, and let's stay connected to our feelings, and stay connected to our humanity, and stay connected to our visceral felt ways of being, there still would be power imbalance. There still would be some human beings, like, right, I've given this example, my husband is stronger than me physically. He just is. If we were out in the wild, based on how his body was built and based on how my body is built, he would survive better. He would easily be able to overpower me, and if we were out there together, he would easily be able to manipulate me into doing whatever he wanted, essentially, in order for me to get my survival needs met, because he would be a better way for me to get my survival needs met than me having to try to get my survival needs met on my own. That power imbalance that exists on this planet is always going to exist. No matter how much we destroy systems, no matter how much we try to create equality, all of these things, there will always be some people who, there will always be societal systems. There will always be the way that nature works, the way that societies work, the way that culture works, that some people are going to be better at playing that game. Some people are just going to be better at doing that thing than other people. And that is going to give them a certain capacity to exploit and to manipulate the groups of people who are then dependent upon that. Okay? And at the same time, humans will always have the capacity to override their humanity, to override their feeling, to override what I believe to be our natural impulse and instinct to see ourselves in everyone else, to see our sameness. And so we may not have a group of people who are in control and in power because they are genuinely better or stronger or fitter or faster or better at playing the game. We might have people who are in positions of power because they were willing to use violence and to use force against another people group, that people group didn't either have the manpower to defend themselves or weren't willing to fight fire with fire. Okay? There are, on our planet, systems of power imbalance that are not natural power imbalance, that are not this group of people was just naturally stronger or better. It was this group of people was willing to be violent and exploitative towards another group of people. And then they created a power imbalance that people weren't able to work their way out of. Okay, so there are naturally created power imbalances, like the difference between my husband's physical natural ability and my physical natural ability to survive in the wild. That's a natural power imbalance that literally no matter what we do, that's always going to exist. And then there are created power imbalances where people use force and they use exploitation and they use violence to get themselves ahead, then creating a gap between them and another group. And then that gap is not easily filled because they had the head start that they continue to build on that disadvantages these people, and then they fall behind more. So we have natural power imbalances and we have unnatural created power imbalances. And this is part of why we have the pain in our world that we have, okay? So the next thing to understand that again, now, these rules, this culture that we were all handed is a mixture of what humans have observed is truly actually good for us and our survival in relation to real reality. And some of what we were taught is good and right and what we should be doing comes from the created culture that we all live within, the invented, this is what we have to do in order to keep culture the way that culture is, in order to keep the systems that we have created as human beings the way those systems are. Okay, so not everything in our conditioning is wrong and out of alignment with how reality actually is. Some of our conditioning is absolutely true. It's absolutely, right? Like if we were conditioned that we need to eat fruits and vegetables every day, if we want to feel good in our bodies, that's a good conditioning because that's true. It's good in the sense that it is in alignment with how real reality functions. When you eat fruits and vegetables every day, you're going to get more nutrients that your body requires in order to function well, and you are going to feel better than if you do not. Now, here's the beautiful thing about that. Now, if you were to say, okay, fuck all the rules, throw all the diet rules out, I'm not going to listen to any diet culture, I'm not going to listen to any rules about anything, and I'm just going to do my own thing, you will be able to feel and experience for yourself, with no one having to tell you, that when you eat more fruits and vegetables versus eating less fruits and vegetables, you feel better in your body. No one will have to tell you that. You won't need a rule book to figure that out. You won't need a diet book to figure that out. You will be able to feel. When I just do this action over and over and over again, I feel this way. When I don't take this action over and over and over again, I feel this way. That's real reality talking to you. Okay? There will always be that. So that's part of it. And then we can start to say, okay, when I ask, am I doing it right? Am I doing it good? You can start to ask yourself, well, how do I feel? What are the results that I'm getting? But we'll get to that in a second. Okay? So that's the first part of reality. The second part of reality, the second part of our conditioning, the second part of our what we were trained is good and bad and what is right and wrong and what is how we should be and how we shouldn't be, comes from culture trying to maintain and sustain itself. Comes from the culture that we're in, the systems and the rules that have been artificially created in order to run society, saying this is how we have to have the population behave in general in order for these structures to continue to go on the way that they're going on. And again, that's not necessarily bad and wrong. Some structures are beneficial. Like some structures where we say, like, maybe we shouldn't kill each other if we actually did that, right? But anyways, the general idea of maybe murder isn't the best way to solve our grievances with one another. If we took away all law, and we took away all order, and we took away all punishment, and all of us just went on murdering sprees every time we were upset, we would see that that would be bad for humanity at large. In the sense of, we would not benefit from that. That would be a detriment to our capacity to survive and thrive and have happy lives as human beings. So when we say bad, what do we really mean? It would be a detriment to our capacity to survive and thrive and have a good experience as individuals and as the collective. Some rules, good and bad, right and wrong, what we've been indoctrinated as good and bad and right and wrong, if we were to let them go, we would figure out either nothing bad happens at all, or good things actually happen. That what culture and society and religion and all of these things have told us is right and good and needs to happen in order for good stuff to be. We would start to realize, like, no, this isn't about being good. This isn't about benefiting the whole. This isn't about actually benefiting me and my life. This is about sustaining a power structure that is benefiting a few at the expense of the many. And there are lots and lots of rules that a lot of us were raised with that say, this is how you have to be, that are not in our best interest, that are not in culture's best, society's best interest, but are rather there to support the systems that we have and the people who are benefiting from the systems. So when we're really asking ourselves, am I doing good? Am I good? Am I good? Am I good enough? We need to start to understand what we're actually asking. Right? Because a lot of us are just like looking outside for that thing that's going to make us good. And it's such a confusing thing. And especially the opposite, right? When we feel like we're failing and we feel like we're not good and we're feeling like we're not doing good enough and we're feeling like if I need to be better, I need to be doing better, I'm failing, I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm not achieving enough, I'm not successful enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not healthy enough, I'm not any of these things enough. We need to back up and say, okay, first and foremost, what am I actually asking here? When I ask, am I good, or am I enough, or am I bad, or am I not enough? What do we actually want? What do we actually need? What are we actually feeling in that moment? Because for a lot of us, again, we've never gone deeper than just, okay, what are my conditioned rules? Where's the rule book? And how can I try to fit myself more deeper into that? So all of us have our rule book that we default to when we start to feel like we're not good enough, when we start to feel like we're not good, when we start to feel like we're failing. Some of us scapegoat onto our bodies. We think we need to lose weight or gain weight or heal or transcend or something like this. Some of us scapegoat onto our careers. I'm not doing enough. I'm not achieving enough. I'm not making enough money. I'm not having a big enough impact. People don't care about my work enough. People don't care about me enough. Am I living my purpose? Am I doing the right thing? Some of us scapegoat onto our relationships. I'm not being loved enough. Am I loving enough? Am I doing it right? Am I too codependent? Am I not codependent? Am I too independent? When will I ever find the love of my life? What are my friends doing? All of these things. Some of us default onto our spirituality. I'm not enlightened enough. I'm not spiritual enough. I'm not aware enough. I'm not good enough in what I'm doing in my spiritual life. I need to be more disciplined and do all these things more. You see? Some of us look to the outside immediately. What are people thinking of me? What do people think of me? What are people doing? Asking people how we look, how are we doing, what's going on, comparing ourselves to others. Am I doing as good as them? Am I doing as good as them? Some of us go internal, and we turn it all in on ourselves, and we're just like, well, no, I'm not living my purpose. I'm not living up to my own expectation for myself. This is who I think I should be, and it's not good. Some of us turn to our religion. Am I being the right? Am I saving enough people? Am I reading enough Bible verses? Am I giving enough to the church? Am I praying enough? Am I sacrificing them enough? We all have the thing we scapegoated onto. We all have a couple of things usually that we scapegoated onto when we don't feel like we're good enough. And if anyone were to say, okay, but wait, what do you really want? What do you think would happen if you were to do that good enough? Like if you were to say, okay, the body thing, the work thing, the relationship thing, if you were to be doing it good enough, do you have an actual definition of what that would be? What is enough? What is good? How would you know that you were good or that you were enough? And I think a lot of us don't have a specific, I know what it would mean to be good enough, so I can specifically say why I'm not good enough. Right? It's vague. Like as soon as we start to look at it, just one level deep, we're going to start to see that it's vague. Our definition of good and our definition of right and our definition of what we have, we couldn't even define it even if we wanted to. We wouldn't know if we were good. All we know is that we're not. We feel like we're not. We have things that we label it. But if we get down to it, it's like, okay, so what exactly would you have to achieve? Where would you have to get in order for you to be able to say, okay, I am good? What would that specifically look like? Most of us don't have that. Or, again, if we do specifically have that, because some of us do have a specific thing. I have 1 million followers on Instagram. I have no symptoms in my body. I have the perfect love of my life, blah, 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 blah. We have this specific idea of who and what we should be. And then we're not following it all the way through of like, okay, so if you were to achieve that, if you were to do it good, and to get to your version of good, right, success, doing it right, what do you think that would give you? What is the magical thing that's going to happen in your life when you get there? What is that going to mean? What is that going to do? And is it really true in real reality? Because what most of us are going to discover is what we really mean when we say, am I good? Am I doing it right? Am I good? Am I good? Am I good? Am I good? Or I don't feel like I'm good. I feel like I'm not good. I feel like I'm failing. What we really mean is, right now, I don't feel good. I don't feel safe. I don't feel like I'm getting what I want. I don't feel like I'm getting the love and the validation and the support that I want. I don't feel like I'm capable of expressing myself the way that I want to be expressing myself. I have emotions I don't know how to process. I'm experiencing some sort of pain or suffering in my life that I don't know how to fix. This is what we're really saying and what we really mean when we say, am I good enough? Am I doing it right? We're saying, I don't feel good and I don't know how to feel good. And I'm hoping that if I follow these rules, these arbitrary rules for long enough, that I will eventually feel good. And I'm hoping that what I have determined are the rules. What I've been trained and taught to believe are the rules. I'm hoping that they are the rules. Right? Most of us don't want to actually question, where did your idea of good come from, and how do you know it would actually make you feel the way you want to feel? Because if we were to confront the thing that we're chasing right now as the thing that's going to make me good, the thing that's going to make me good enough, which what we really mean is the thing that's going to make me feel safe, like I'm going to be able to get my needs met, like I'm going to be able to express how I want to express. If we really follow that all the way through, we could be as good by the rule book as we want. And we can get there, and it's still not going to give us the feeling that we want. It's not going to give us the empowerment that we want. It's not going to give us the relief that we want, because it doesn't actually address the thing that's actually going on. It's not, are you following the rule book enough? Are you validated by the external world enough? Are you good? Whenever we ask ourselves, am I good? Am I doing it right? Am I failing? Is this a failure? We gotta stop and realize the first question we need to be asking ourselves when that happens is, what am I feeling right now? What am I actually feeling? Because not good enough isn't a feeling. I remember in the beginning when I was really obsessed with my body, and I heard two things. One thing, someone saying to me, fat is not a feeling. And I was like, yeah, absolutely, right? I feel fat. I feel puffy. I feel that. That's not a feeling. That is a scapegoat on top of what we're actually feeling. I feel not good enough is not a feeling. Okay? A feeling is tightness in my chest, tightness in my belly. I feel light. I feel dizzy. A feeling is a physical felt sensation. Not good enough, you can't, where do you feel that in your body? Right? That's not a feeling. So we first have to start to ask ourselves, every single time we're in that state of, am I good enough? Am I doing enough? Am I doing what I should be doing? We need to first step back and say, okay, there is something going on here. I am in pain. There is something happening. There's something that I'm experiencing that I don't know how to process, and that I'm using my rule book, the rule book that I was handed, some of which are good things, true things, some of which are not, and it's all an amalgamation at this point. And I'm using my rule book to try to make myself do the right thing, hoping that I'm going to get the results of safety, self-expression, and love. Because these are the things that we want as human beings. Deep down, we want to feel like we can express ourselves, like we can keep growing and expanding and having this experience of being a human. We want to feel like we're going to get our needs met and we're going to be safe. And remember that our needs and our self-expression go beyond just food and sex and shelter and water, right? We are complex human beings. We have a spiritual nature to us. We have a complex nature. So part of our needs is creative expression. Part of our needs are spiritual expression and connection, if that, resonates with you. Part of our needs is we all have individual needs for what serves our blueprint. Okay? So this goes so far beyond just like, am I getting my basic physical needs met? When I talk about needs, like for me, spirituality is a need. I don't feel complete without it. Coming and sharing these videos feels like a part of my needs and it accept my self-expression. Okay? And just really being able to understand too that when we're in pain, when we're suffering, a lot of us, for very good reason, don't know how to identify the pain we're in, why we're in that pain, and how to figure out how to get out of that pain. Because again, here's how this all ties together, is the rules we were all taught for this is how to be good and this is how to be right and all these things first, right? Our perception was so trained from the very beginning that being loved and accepted and valued from the outside world is how we get safety and pleasure and our needs met. It's where we find the safety to express ourselves. It's where we find access to the resources we need to survive and to thrive. It's where we get that connection need met. We have to be good enough. We have to be seen as valued by the culture, by those we live around, in order to get what we want. But sometimes, in order to be loved and valued and accepted by the culture, we have to then turn off parts of our true selves or exaggerate parts of ourselves that don't exist and live within an indoctrination culture that goes against who and what we are, that doesn't support our expression. And so we're constantly feeling pulled between pain and pain. If I am my real self, I lose community, connection, being valued and loved and approved of. And in my nervous system, that tells me I'm going to die. But not being my true self, doing what I need to do to fit into culture, being good by cultural standards, feels terrible because it's not who I really am. It's not what I really want. And to lesser and greater degrees, we all have things that are about us that totally fit into culture, and it's all good. Who we really are gets us love and approval and sustenance and what we need, right? So it's not as simple as just figure out who and what you are and just live that. Because we are an interconnected species who are dependent to lesser and greater degrees upon everyone else. None of us are sovereign individuals just living completely on our own. Like, I don't know very many people who are just out on the wilderness fully providing for themselves, having no one around that they are in a relationship with. Because even if that were the case, they're in a relationship with nature, right? Like, we are not sovereign individuals. So this is why I said at the beginning, learning to work with your conditioning and your programming and figuring out who and what you are and what works for you. It's not just about abandoning culture and abandoning conditioning and abandoning what everyone else says and then just trying to be fully and completely who you are, and just because we all are going to live in this culture. We're all going to live in this system. And figuring out, again, the balance of how much of my true self can I be so that I can be expressing myself as much as I possibly can, as healthfully as I possibly can, without actually causing my life to end because I get so far away from culture that I can't provide and survive on my own. You see? Like, it's not so simple. But a lot of us can get a lot closer to who we truly really are. And remembering, culture, society is not set in stone. We can change what is and isn't acceptable in our culture. What is and isn't something that gets us approved of or disapproved of in our culture. We can change consensus reality to become closer and closer and closer to true and real reality. Real reality we can't change. I can never jump off a cliff and fly by flapping my arms. It doesn't matter how much I do, it doesn't matter how many studies I do and how many people agree with me that should be fine, and how much I change in my mind the laws of aerodynamics. Reality is not changing for me. That is a reality, and that is what that is. If I want to fly, I have to go in alignment with real reality. Consensus reality. What individuals reward with resources and love and approval and attention, things that human beings need, we can change that shit. We can absolutely fundamentally say, okay, these systems that we're valuing right now suck. No, let's make a new value system. Because these things aren't actually valuable. And this is part of why this work that we're doing inside of ourselves in our spiritual journey and our self-love journey in the figuring out who and what we are and what it actually takes for us to feel good in this life, in real reality, is so important. Because the more of us who do this, the more of us who start to wake up to, okay, when I say that I want to be good, what I really mean is that I want to live up to the cultural standards and I want to live up to reality, both, so that I'm in a state where I'm rewarded and that I get the things that I need, and where that when I'm in pain, I can figure it out, or someone can help me figure it out so I can get out of pain. That's what we mean. That's what we want. That's what it would mean to be good. That's what we all really mean. We want to feel good. We want to feel safe. We want to feel like we're loved and like we can figure it out when we're in pain, so we can keep growing. That's what we want. And we've all been, again, cultured and indoctrinated that this is what you have to be in society and in culture and in your family and in your religion and in all of these things to be rewarded. And then, like I said, we have some power systems that have literally convinced us. Okay, so now, here's one thing, okay? In real reality, when we're being good, and the real definition, when we're living in alignment with real reality, we're expressing ourselves, our true selves, we're having our growth experience, we're doing the life thing with all of its complexity and all of its magicalness and all of its connection to the cosmos and all that stuff, because that is a part of reality. We generally feel, from day to day, moment to moment, good. When we're being challenged, we feel capable of facing the challenge. When we have an emotional experience, when we're breaking down, when things are hard, we know how to grieve. We know how to process our anger. We know how to process our emotions so we can use them. We feel purposeful, and this is a huge key. When we're really living in alignment with real reality, we let go of the idea that we have a purpose and that's going to be the thing. And we understand that every minute of every day is our purpose. And we bring purpose and we bring meaning to it by being in it and learning and loving ourselves and showing up for ourselves in the moment as I am good enough just as I am right here, right now. And what am I learning? What am I stepping into? Because both of these things are always going to exist simultaneously. The need to feel like we're good enough and we're loved and we're valued for who and what we are right here, right now, even if nothing ever changes. And the need and the desire to change and grow and interact with our never-endingly different environment. Both of those two things exist simultaneously, right? I know a lot of people really believe if I were to accept and love myself or feel like I'm living my purpose exactly right here, right now, this is it, I'm going to give up hope and never want to do life anymore because I would have no motivation to keep going. But the exact opposite is true. The more you love and accept and value and nourish and nurture and show up for who and what you are right now in whatever you're experiencing, the more motivated you are to grow and expand and keep going. Because, again, it's just biology. It sets you up to be in a state of nervous system rest and digest, where you want to explore, you want to expand, you feel safe. When you love who and what you are right here, right now, like we stop doing all of our self-improvement tools and our self-love tools to fix ourselves, to make ourselves better. We start to understand that some of that existential dread of, am I good, am I right, am I doing it good, am I wasting my life, da-da-da-da-da, all of that, so much of that is relieved when we can just start to show up and say, I'm good enough and I love myself right now. I'm doing good. I give myself permission to feel like I'm doing good. Because that's what I want. Part of what I want is just to feel loved and like I'm good enough. We can give that to ourselves. And then what's left over is going to be the pain of reality. When we're loving and accepting and valuing ourselves, this doesn't mean that all pain goes away. It's not perfect, makes your whole life perfect. What it will do is it will help you to start to determine the consensus reality pain you're facing, the like I'm being told by culture I need to do this thing, but when I love and accept myself and I value myself and I look at my actual conditions, I don't need to do that thing. It's not going to give me anything that I want other than external validation and approval. But it doesn't give me more money that I actually need. It doesn't give me any of these things that I actually want. It's not going to add to my life experience in ways that are actually meaningful for me as a human being. Right? Like, we have a lot of people who are chasing money and success, and they are going for it, and they have like ridiculously more than they need. And how many times do we need to see that this doesn't make people happy? Wealth beyond enough to keep yourself going doesn't increase happiness. Okay, so there's that. We know there are tons of people out there who have what we all dream of as a purpose. They're a musician, they're a spiritual teacher, they're a mother, they're whatever they think they are. And they're like, this is my thing, this is what I was put on this planet to do. And they're doing it to the fullest extent they're doing it. And guess what? They still have pain. They still have relationship issues. They still have health issues. It doesn't make their life perfect. It doesn't give us what we think it's going to give us. There are people out there who have reached the pinnacle of success, and like everyone loves them, their miscongeniality, and they still don't feel good enough. Because that's not where this comes from. Okay, so there's that. And then there's going to be the pain of real reality. Like I said, there's always going to be challenge. There's always going to be stuff we're facing. There's always going to be emotions we need to be processing. And that doesn't have to take away from our joy. And that doesn't take away from our feeling of being in alignment and doing the right thing. It's when we start to realize that life is a perpetual journey of learning and expanding and growing, and times where we feel great and times where things are a little bit challenging or a lot challenging, and times where we need to challenge consensus reality, times where we're not going to have the strength to do that, times where we're just going to be really down and we just need to cry and let go and break down. Like, life is long and it's this journey, and we're never going to get to good enough where we don't feel pain anymore and we're in perpetual pleasure. And so, like I say, some of our society and our institutions have taught us that pain and suffering and self-sacrifice and not feeling good in this lifetime is a guarantee that you're doing it right and you're going to be rewarded in the next lifetime. And I feel like this is the most insidious, purity, right, good culture that we have. I would say there are times when I look at secular teachings of like, if you do these things right, you'll have success in this lifetime. That I'm like, that's closer to reality than some of the religious teachings that tell us you need to be in a state of pain and self-sacrifice and self-flagellation and self-hate and self-suppression for your whole life in order to be doing good, and you will be rewarded in the next lifetime. I think that is the biggest dupe on the planet. Because in real reality, when you are doing what is truly good for your soul, for your body, for humanity, it feels good. The biggest lie we have been told is that the worse something feels, the more right and good and true it is. And that pleasure is wrong and bad and dirty and sinful. Because absolutely, we have our pain and pleasure wires crossed, right? A lot of us, we live in this world where we're so overwhelmed and so overburdened and so overtaxed, and we're so depleted of what we actually want and what we actually need. We have addictions and we have scapegoats and we have these things that we do that feel good in the moment and then that lead to negative consequence in the end. And that's what I'm going to say, right? Real reality never lies. If our source of pleasure in this moment leads to physical degradation, that's reality telling you that's not a real source of pleasure. That's a way that we're scapegoating. That's a way that we're numbing. That's a way that we're running away from pain. But we're not connecting with what's true for us. Real, true pain, pleasure in real reality has no negative consequence. But again, this gets confusing because sometimes what brings us true, real pleasure gets us rejected. People don't like it. Culture rejects us. So there's a negative consequence in that way. But that's not real reality telling you that what you did was wrong. That's culture saying you're not aligning with culture. And not aligning with culture, again, is not always bad for your interests. And aligning with culture is not always good for your interests or for the collective's interests. So again, I hope that you will watch more of my material because we talk a lot about these things. This is complicated. This is complex. Figuring out what is true, real reality, consensus reality, what is true pain and true pleasure versus consensus reality, pain and pleasure. Figuring all of these things out is not easy. It takes time. We work with it. And then, like I say, figuring out how to continually be in that negotiation with how can I accept myself and be myself and express myself how I want to within the culture that I am to a degree dependent upon. It's not clean, it's not cut and dry. But we work with it by continuing to show up for ourselves and be on our own sides and love ourselves and give ourselves that benefit of the doubt and learning to feel versus externalizing everything. This is the big key here. Whenever you ask yourself, am I good? Am I failing? Ask yourself, what do you feel right now? And what do you actually want? What do you feel right now? And what do you actually want? When you say, am I failing? What do you mean by that? Failing at what? Failing by whose standards? What would it mean to be a success? What would it mean to do it right? And what do you think that would give you? Where did this come from? Does it align with what actually you value? And you might come and say, I don't know what I value. I don't know what I want. I don't know. And that's okay. We start there. Make that okay. If we don't know, if we don't have clarity on that, okay. Next thing, go after what you think is good. Go after what you think. And then really check the results. Does it give you positive results in your actual life? Or does it just give you people approving of you? Does it give you a promise that if I keep living this way, even though it sucks right now, in the future, in the next life, I will be rewarded? What does following the rules actually get you? And is it really that you're in pain because you can't follow the rules? Or because you follow the rules back? Is that true? When you let go of the rules, what actually happens? Not in your head, not what you're worried is going to happen. What do you actually feel when you let go of the rules? What actually do you experience? Is it a real rule, as in real reality, or is it man-made? We can start to ask ourselves these questions. Because when we say, am I good? Am I right? Am I pure? We need to really be considering what we're asking, what we're feeling, what we're wanting, and what culture and society have been telling us our whole lives is the root to these things. And is that really true? The root, the route, the way. Is it true? Does it get us what we want? Safety, expression, love. If we were to love ourselves, do we still want to keep doing all these things? Because good and right are substitutes. Good and right are substitutes for what we actually really want and what we're actually really going for. That's what we need to realize. So what do you really want? What are you really going for? What's under that? Let's ask these deeper questions. Okay? Let's go beyond purity culture and what culture tells us is good and right and wrong and all of these things. And even what our chosen culture, like we might be adults who have gone on different lineages and explored different ways of being right and good. And I would ask again, is it working? Is it making your life better? Is it truly serving your capacity to express and to feel like you're good enough right now? And to feel like you can approve of yourself right here in this moment and then start to feel reality for yourself. Is it giving you that? Is it helping you feel more connected to humanity and to the cosmos? Is it helping you feel more purposeful in every minute of every day instead of needing to get to a purpose? Is it helping you integrate your humanity and the fact that we're never going to have it all figured out and be right about everything? Can you enjoy the journey more and more? If your things that make you good and right are doing those things for you, then I'd say absolutely. If the things aren't doing those things for you, let's question them. Let's bring them into the light. Where did they come from? What are you expecting from them? Okay? Okay. So remember, what if you're already good? What if you're already good enough? What if you're not failing? What might you actually be feeling if when you say, am I good, you're not actually asking if you're good? When you ask, am I failing, you're not actually asking if you're failing. There's something deeper going on. There's a culture to question. There's a whole what's real pain and what's consensus reality pain to question. Okay? Okay. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week. Let me know if you have any questions. Pop those down below. I had another video down there called renegotiating our relationship with being wrong. And I think that's a good adjunct to this video. And other than that, I think you're great. I think you're already good. I think you're already doing good enough. And so what do you really want? What do you really need? What are you actually asking? Okay, I love you. See you next week. Goodbye.